Good evening, everybody. Welcome to all of you who came here tonight discuss about windmills. My name is Tommy Dean Johnson. I'm a lifelong resident of Marion County. I'm also Marion County JP of District 9. I do want to emphasize to you, let you know that this is not tied in with any Corn Quarter County business. I had some constituents who brought up about the windmills, especially from Carroll County. And then Carolyn Rogers, who's here tonight from Carroll County, your Justice of the Peace over there. She's very well informed about that project over there. She contacted me, and we pretty well came together, got with the judge, and we decided we wanted to put together a town hall meeting. Now, first of all, I want you to understand, there's no discussion that I am aware of about moving windmills into this county. Do know there was a project that was talked about with Baxter, Boone, Marion, Newton, Searcy counties. Right now, Carroll County is that it. That's about all it is right there. So this is only to inform you, let you know about the pros and the cons about that on the windmills. Okay. We'll have 3 segments. I'll be a quick PowerPoint segment. Carol will come up with her segment of it. John Russo is our attorney. He's online. He will explain about the state laws that the legislature's passed, so you have a better understanding about the limitations that windmill companies are adhered to. Okay. Also, please hold your questions till we get all 3 of these out. These speakers here, we're not going to spend a lot of time on it, get in the technical jargon of it, because there's no reason for that. We're going to get to the point, and then if you got questions, we'll answer them as best we can, and we'll just go from there. Okay. So first off, I want you to know something. Excuse me. This PowerPoint I'm going to start out with, all I'm going to do is give you some specifications on the base, the tower, the blade, and the electric turbine. Okay. So if you will, next slide. I want to emphasize that you are a private property owner. If you want to put windmills on your property, that is your right. Okay. You have that right under the Arkansas Constitution, that your property is higher than any constitutional sanction. Doesn't matter whether I'm for or against it. If you want to do it, I will back you up, because I may not like windmills. That's not the point. It's your property. Just you need to understand what you're going to get involved with if you decide to do that, because it won't be just you. They're not going to come in and put up 3 windmills or whatever on your land. There'll be a tie-in with a lot of other landowners. It's going to affect everybody around you. That's why all we want you to do is understand what to get into. Okay, next slide, please. David and Goliath. This is a windmill out in Kansas. I think a friend of Carolyn's took this picture. You can see a little bitty car down there at the base. That shows you how large these things can be. And we'll get into some of the specifications on that. Next one, please. On the base, 1,000 tons of concrete and rebar go into this. It's 30 to 50 feet across, can be 6 to 30 feet deep. It depends on the height of the windmill. The higher it goes up, the bigger the base has to be for obvious reasons, because it's technically, it's very top heavy, and it's wind by what the wind blows. Okay. If it doesn't have a real good base under there, it's going to come down. So they have to put in a lot of base in that for ever how much distance it is. Mountaintops are blasted to create a level area of 3 acres minimum. They'll clean that out of there for obvious reasons. Next one, please. Tower can be 200 to 650 feet tall. It can weigh as much as 100 tons. This is one of the windmills down in Carroll County. This is the first one you'll see when you come up on the county road into those areas where they have those windmills. Next one. Fiberglass and carbon fiber composites is what make up these blades. They can be 144 to 341 feet in length. That's kind of his average on there. It just depends on what the conditions are going to be, the terrain, wind, geological, whatever. They can exceed 164 tons. They're very heavy. If you've ever seen them in transport, you know what I'm talking about. It is something else, okay? And the rotor diameters can reach about 600 feet. Now, I want to make one little point, and Carolyn will bring up there a little bit more. On that fiberglass, I'm not sure if they're still doing it with fiberglass. They may be, but they're running into problems with the fiberglass with wind, heat, wind, cold, whatever. That fiberglass can flake off, and when it does, it'll fly out, gets into the ground, gets on the grass. Cattle eat the grass. You can figure the rest out. Next. Generators. 1.5 megawatts, 16 megawatts, depending on the size. Higher the wind speed, the more electricity produced. 25-mile-an-hour wind it produces, but at 50, somewhere along in there, they shut it down for obvious reasons. It'll go, get out there really fast. and then you'll have a breakdown on that one. They're trying to avoid that. But you can see the size of the turbines. That's one man standing there on that. That gives you an idea of how huge those things are. Next. Here's one of the big problems of them. They contain about 80 to 2,000 gallons of oil lubricant. Depends on how big the turbine is. And of course, that gets into a real problem. Here just a few days ago, one in Texas was hit by lightning and set it on fire. And when it catches on fire, those lightning strikes are one of the biggest things about that. And you're getting into the problem with rural fire departments are having the problems or can't have them because they're not really set up for that. These are an environmental hazard. They don't have the equipment to try to put it out. Again, it's with all that oil, you're talking about a petroleum contaminant. They'll have to wait till it really falls to the ground. All they can do is just kind of keep it contained, and then you're getting into a hazmat situation there. Okay, next. This is an old picture, but it shows you that little bitty dusting thing up there is a D7 cat, probably. I'm going to say it's a D7 or D or bigger. Those are windmill blades, no longer used. What do they do with them? They bury them. That's it. They can't reuse them. You can't recycle them, nothing. They just bury them. And you know how long they stay in the ground? Forever. Next. This is an estimate I pulled up there, what they pull money from. You can kind of read from 1 megawatt up to 6 megawatts and how much money it generates. Now, that's for the windmill companies that built these things. One of the things, and I've not really been able to hardcore establish it, but it takes about 15 years before they start to have the cost of that windmill has been paid. They're very expensive. I will admit they are very real technological genius in a way. But boy, they, like anything else, they have their drawbacks. But the lifespan on them, it depends. They estimate around 25, 30 years. Of course, any kind of factors can get into that. One of the problems there, and they've really tried to work about that, was at one time, they put the windmill on your farm or your location of your property, and it was there. And once it's done, whatever the reason, they pull out the windmill companies, it's your windmill. And you get into all type of financial and environmental problems. That's changed somewhat. You need to be real, if you did decide to want to do something like that, I would suggest you get a lawyer who knows what they're doing on that so that because I think it can get up to like 30 pages on the contract, maybe even more. So they get into a lot of detail on that. But that kind of give you an idea. They make money, but then there's also a lot of impact by them for everybody. So it's a real kind of a hidden give and take deal if you're not real careful. You got to be informed about them. You really do. Next. This is some pictures of some of the land. They cleared this down in Carroll County. The rest of these pictures are going to show you. This is off the county road. I'm not really sure why they cleared all that out. Carolyn may be able to explain that to you better more than that. Next, please. This is the staging area. This is offices, the whole bit. And you have to have a huge staging area for obvious reasons for the size they are. Next. This is part of that staging area. This just, all I can do is just add to it. They have to clear out some area. And when they do the concrete, if they don't have a close concrete plant, they have to build one or put one in place there because when you pour concrete, you got to do it. You don't have time to be waiting on trucks. Next. This is just another kind of show you, they built a berm up there. I'm not really sure why, but they did. But this is quite a few acres up there, that one location just for Carroll County. It gets into quite a project. It really does. Next. This gives you an idea about, they have to have cranes, and when they bring those cranes in, they are huge. They actually have to remove the tracks. They got to get it on the little boy trailer on there. Then they have to remove the tracks because it's just too wide to go down the highway. And the towers, it's just something else. Moving them is quite a chore in itself. That gives you an idea of what you got to get into. Next. This is the electrical plant where the electricity comes into, and then it goes out wherever it distributes it to. So you got to have that in place wherever the wind turbines are at. It gets more than just putting up the wind turbines. There's a lot of infrastructure in there, and there's a lot of property damage done on that. Ms. Rogers will explain that when she gets up here. Next. That pretty well kind of just a quick from my part of it about what you get in, just the basics. I didn't want to get into technical stuff because there wasn't no reason for that. So I have Carolyn come up now. She, like I said, she has really researched this far more than I have, and she can help you out on that one, this next one. Carol?
All right, thank you so much. I mean, Tommy did a great job here. I'm not sure how much more. Bring it closer. Mr. Johnson did such a great job. I'm not sure how much more I can add, but I'll give it a real good shot. So my name is Caroline Rogers, and I live in Carroll County. Been there for 10 years, and I live in the middle of the Nimbus Wind Farm project. That is the second wind farm built in the state of Arkansas. The first one is down in the Delta area in the town of Wynn, consequently, and then they started with 30 turbines, and they did not get in a moratorium, and Act 945 was not in place, so they're getting 90 more wind turbines down in Wynn. And then the next county over, Crittenton, is going to be getting the data center. So they really wanted the ridges of Carroll County. And I just happened to be living right in the middle of it, and I planned to move. And I was calling the sister counties to find out who had some good, if there was any leases out for turbines, because I didn't want to move someplace that had leases. So that's how I got a hold of J.P. Johnson here, and then he asked me to come and just to give you my take on what it's like living up there. So I'm going to backtrack just a little bit to 2016. That's when the wind company came in. So it tells you right there, it takes anywhere from 7 to 10 years from the time they start planning it, coming knocking on the doors and getting leases until they're actually built. So this project is 30 turbines, and I think they've got 2 more, and it's supposed to be turned on in a couple of months. You know, we'll see. And then it's supposed to, the contracts are like for 30 years. Well, my point to them was, well, most of us will be, in the ground by the time 30 years is up. How do we know that they're going to be decommissioned properly? Where the blade's going to go? There was no mention of where that's going to go. And like the slide that he showed you, that was Sweetwater, Texas, and there's only about 3 or 4 states that have burial grounds for wind turbine blades. They're running out of space to put these. Some companies have said that, yes, we're going to recycle them, but the latest I saw on that was they tried to, and it didn't turn out so well, so there aren't companies doing that. They may try again. I mean, it's entirely possible that they can chop them up and do something with them. The one thing about the wind turbine leases is that they have non-disclosure agreements. So they have non-disclosure agreements, and so that's why the public doesn't find out about it. Nobody talks about it. They have to sign that. I found out quite by accident. I was on my way to work one day, and I saw some guys working on the road that weren't from Carroll County, and I said, "What are you guys up to?" And they're like, "Well, we're taking soil samples so that we can widen the road and bring in wind turbine blades." That's how I found out. That was February 2023. So I actually wanted to go back, I think, 2 slides to that single turbine. Yep, that one right there. Okay, so it comes in segments, like Tommy said. So there's about 4 segments that make up the tower part. And then the blades, the ones in Carroll County, are 262 feet long. So when the blade is pointed up at the vertical axis and to the ground, the ones in Carroll County are 645 feet. Some are 698 feet. We happen to get the largest in the United States. Why they want to experiment in Carroll County, I don't know.
I spent 7 years moving those back.
You'll be good to talk to afterwards. Okay, yes, I'm going to go to that one. Go back one, please. Okay, so this is the transmission center that they had to build. So that road that you see in front there, that's our county road. So we've gone through a lot of mess with our county road for the last 16 months, and they put down a lot of gravel. They laid a lot of gravel, but the problem is a lot of it washed out. The road is a lot better than that now, but this is just an example of what we had to go through. The road was not that bad before they started. Okay, next. Back one. Okay, that one right there. This is across the street from me. So those two turbines there that are approximately 650 foot tall, they are not on the property where that house is. They're actually on the property behind it. Now, I'm going to give you an example of what wind turbine companies do. The husband and wife that lived there, when the wind company approached them and they said, we just need an easement. And easements don't pay as much as turbines. And so they said, no, we're not going to sign that. So the wind company kind of figured out, well, we need to sweeten the pot a little bit. So they inferred, they didn't write it down, but they inferred they would get 3 turbines. So they signed. And whenever you sign the lease, they can do whatever they want. So if you sign a lease for turbines and they decide they're not going to give you any, they can still do anything else that they want to do, which includes putting in that road. That was their front yard. That road, that's their front yard. So they had cows, so they don't have cows anymore. So they ended up selling their property, and that's what the wind company wanted, was to get from where those 2 turbines are across the road and across the street to the other turbines. They needed a connector road. Next. Okay, so as Tommy said earlier, they take out a lot of trees. So in the upper left-hand corner, all of that was just trees. And there's a road going down the middle, and that is a easement road that the wind company built. And as you can see, that's a pretty good slope. And I'm going to direct your eye up towards the front, and you can barely see it. And I know what to look for, but there is like a double black line that curves around the trees in the bottom. And what that is silt fencing, and they have to do that with ADEQ. But the interesting thing is they put the silt fencing on certain properties, but not all properties. So there's not silt fencing on the upper portion. And because I drive on that road, I know that there's now erosion coming down on that upper bank. And on the bottom corner, behind the tree line, is an area that they cleared for a pad, which used to be all forest. So that's why the water is gushing, because it used to be all forest. And so it's a slight slope downward, and the direction of the water is the road, the only road that we drive on to get in and out. Now, they are required to put up the silt fencing, and on the bottom picture is the straw wattles. So, after a while, that straw breaks down and just doesn't do a good job. And we had a time last year with the road flooding out, so we'll see what happens this year, if the same thing is going to happen. They've made a lot of improvements since then, but we had to go through about a year of this. Next. Okay, let's see how I want to. Okay, so basically, we know that the wind turbine leases are a private agreement, private property, but because of everything that goes on, it affects the public. And so the first 8 years or so, the public was not at all concerned because we didn't know anything was going on. There was no construction. But in October of 2024 is when they started tearing down the trees. And when they started bringing in the heavy, heavy equipment, I mean, I've never seen equipment this big. And then the trailers, the tractor trailers that have to bring in the equipment is just enormous. So what it created was a lot of problems for the public. It got to the point that I had to leave an hour early to get to work because I never knew if there was going to be a truck in the middle of the road, if we were going to be stopped. We could be stopped on our 1-lane county road for up to 20 minutes at a time. Every day. They seem to have the right of way, not us. The bottom says a road use agreement. That is an agreement that the county judge can make with the wind turbine company. So they signed that agreement, and it says that they do have to do certain things to the road because basically, if the wind company had not widened the road and added gravel, they wouldn't have been able to get the blades up there at all. That's how fragile the road was. So they ended up putting 12 inches of base gravel on the main road. So it really built up the road, as you can imagine. And in one particular spot, it built it up so high that when it rained, all the runoff went into my neighbor's front yard. So there's lots of little things like that that happen that it's like, why are you going to do this to your neighbor? But these are things you don't know until they start building it. Next. Okay, yeah, this is the number one thing that we're really concerned about is the possibility of a fire. So it's basically an oil can on the lightning rod. And when you get up to almost 700 foot tall on a 2,000 foot tall ridge, I mean, everybody knows that lightning strikes the tallest item. We get lightning strikes up there and it hits the trees and whatever, no particular issue. But when you have these combustibles with that lightning, they do catch on fire. Hold on just one second. This is a magazine from the wind companies. It's North America Clean Energy. And it's, I think it was a year ago, January. And they have a whole article, The Economic and Environmental Cost of Wind Energy, and they talk specifically about the turbine fires. So it's not like they don't know that they catch on fire. They do know, but they just don't really do anything about it. They could put in fire suppression systems, but I understand that they're very expensive, and a lot of wind companies will not choose to do that. So it's a concern for us because already in the 15 months, we had a grass fire that was around one of the turbines. Nobody still knows how it got started, but it burned 30 acres. And when the volunteer fire department came in, it wasn't easy for them. And it just happened to be that there was a dozer nearby that the wind company was using, so they were able to use the dozer and make a fire break and contain it and put it out. But because these turbines are built on the ridge line, if they were to collapse and fall over, we're going into a very dense forest, and below that is going to be people's homes. So we've questioned them about, have you trained the fire department? Does the fire department need, do they need more training? Do they need more equipment? Do they need more product? What do they need? But we never got an answer from them on that. I guess they're just going to hope that nothing happens. Next. Okay. This particular slide, so when the wind companies come in, they're going to say three things. They're going to pay tax money to the county, they're going to bring in jobs, and then the landowners are going to get paid. Well, that last one doesn't have anything to do with the public, that's private. But they come in and they make the deals with the county. A lot of times they want better deals after they've gone through their whole spiel. And one of the things they like to do is ask for payment in lieu of taxes. It's called a pilot program. Most of the wind companies do that, or they'll ask for a tax abatement. I talked to a senator from Kansas, and he said there are wind companies up there where the wind company pays less taxes than he pays on his house. So they do try to do different things with their taxes, and I actually called another county in Oklahoma and found out that the wind companies there actually sued the assessor's office because they didn't like the amount they were being assessed at. And they ended up going to court for 3 years. And after a while, they just said, okay, we'll settle it for 60% less than what the assessor said. And they wanted interest on top of that. So these are just some of the things you don't know. I'm bringing it to your attention because I have looked into it. Let's see if there's anything else. Next. Yeah, this is another concern of I've watched these wind turbine companies. Most of the wind turbine companies sell to another company, usually in less than a year, but certainly by 5 years. I'll give you, for instance, wind in Cross County, Arkansas. They've got their wind turbines up. It's not even been a year, and they've already sold it. So You don't know if the change in ownership is going to make a difference on the tax responsibility to the county. Next. Okay, we'll end there.
That's just,
So I asked some of my neighbors, would they give me their opinion on what they've gone through, what it's like living in the middle of a wind turbine farm. So I have just two short things that was given to me. So one lady, she said, it's been noisy and extremely loud equipment all hours of the day and night for the past 2 years, running up and down the property next to me. She also said, dust so thick, you can't even breathe and go outside some days. So what they're doing is they're tearing up to make a road, so they're taking off the grass and the trees, and it's creating a lot of dust. Now, they are supposed to wet the ground. They don't always do that. And beside her house was an area that was kind of off to the side. No one really noticed it, but she did, and her animals did. I felt for those animals with all that dust. I mean, I saw it flying, and she made videos about it. Her driveway that goes right next to where the big trucks would drive, her driveway is completely ruined, and they've not made any attempt to fix it. She said they've destroyed so many trees around her property that she no longer has a windbreak. When she looks outside, she sees 23 turbines. So she lives up on a hill, and so she's got a 360 view of all these wind turbines. And the one that's the closest to her is 1,018 feet. Now, if Act 945 had been in play at that particular time, the distance would have been 2,500 foot. So she would have had a few less. My other neighbor, he said, previous to the wind project, when he came onto County Road 905, it was his calming down time. It's a peaceful drive, and that's the same way I feel. That county road was just so nice and calm, relaxing, the flowers, the animals, it was just so calming. But now with all the trees scalped down, it's not attractive anymore. It's not calming anymore. This particular neighbor, he also lost his well. So his property was adjacent to that transmission facility that you saw in the picture. So that was 13 acres that they clear cut. And they didn't just bring in one bulldozer, they brought in like 15 at a time. So you got 15 of these things, and they're knocking over the trees from the roots. They're not cutting them down, they're knocking them over, and then they take in that giant chipper. So they knock them, they chip them, they shred them, and they spit them back out into little piles. And that's where the trees ended up. And so they completely clear cut that because they needed to make that transmission facility. He believes that because of all the vibration in the ground from that large equipment, so much equipment at one time and so heavy at one time, that it was a ripple down effect through the rocks and caused him for his well to go dry. He had it inspected with the company that he's been using for 20 years, and the inspector said there's nothing mechanically wrong. It just went dry and has not returned. It's been a year. He cites different violations of state laws with these tractor trailers bringing in the equipment. There were, in the very beginning, they didn't know how steep 103 South was. They were literally stalling out on 103 South on an incline and stopping traffic behind you. I mean, they stalled out for 20, 30 minutes at a time, stopping traffic. There was a lot of unsafe situations, and we're just so glad that nobody got hurt. Oh, I wanted to bring up one last point. Talking about personal turbines. If you look up on the internet, there are two companies that have very interesting and unique personal turbines. One is called flower turbines, and they build about 30 feet tall, and they actually kind of look like a flower, like a tulip. And so they rotate around, and you can put them in clusters like 3 or 4 at a time, and it creates this vortex of wind, and so it's perfect for using at your home. There's another company, and it's called Heirloom, and it's AIR-Loom. It's actually, it was thought of by Bill Gates, and it's completely different. It's not a vertical axis system. It's actually like a loop, like a track, and it's got the blades on it, but the whole thing is no more than 100 feet tall. And so they have these blades on it, and they just go around like this. They slide on the track and go around. And so that creates energy as well. And he said it's much more efficient, and they can build them faster and quicker and cheaper than their traditional wind turbines. So there are other avenues out there, just, you know, the money is for these big ones. I think that's about all I wanted to cover.
Thank you, Carolyn. We're going to try to do with John Russo. He is the legal on this thing, and he is not here. He's had other commitment. So we're going to put him, stream him online so he can give you what the legal is that the state of Arkansas has done to try to get this into perspective for landowners and all the other technical problems that they get into, and to help out can help out the community. Is that going to be able to work out here, I guess?
Can you hear me?
Just a minute, okay.
Can you hear me?
Well, go ahead. Is there any questions, right quick? Boy, we must have done really good, Carolyn.
Okay.
Right, yeah, John.
My understanding from the act that a active facility has to create 5 megawatts. Is alternative and create that much electricity?
So probably the heirloom does, because it can be made to a larger scale, and they're actually, Bill Gates is actually looking to install those heirlooms with the AI data centers. That's kind of what I just brought up on the internet. Link those together, because the data centers use a lot of electricity, as you know, along with other things. And he's
There he is.
Data centers. He's got a prototype that's going up actually this in Wyoming. So it's supposed to produce.
Okay. All right, we got John Russo on here. John, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good. How are you, sir? She has to unmute me. Have you unmuted me?
Your lips are moving. Hang on.
Unmute the Zoom call.
We're getting there. Just hang with us.
Push the button. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
You can't hear me? Raise the volume.
Not picking him up at all. Probably
Do
not
you
doing it.
do you have the Zoom call unmuted? You have to unmute the Zoom call.
I'm in there and it says you're unmuted.
It's white, not blue.
Well, she's working that out. I would tell you what I can about the state of Arkansas. They've gone in after, I believe, Carroll County. You can help me out. Windmill's got processed Carroll County, and that raised a lot of issues. And the state of Arkansas moved in and started putting restrictions, or at least some type of parallel in there where it would, people who didn't have your private property rights violated, but you couldn't just move in, like get into a lot of the problems of what they saw in Carroll County. Okay. They also moved where the state moved it where quorum courts can make decisions about. They can't restrict land ownership, or use of your land or anything like that, but it can put it there where they look at and review how it would affect your county. So they gave the quorum courts some of that authority there to look into that. They can't really go in there and stop something, but they can put any questions and I wouldn't say roadblocks, but okay, you're gonna have to answer this, you're gonna have to answer that. So they gave a lot of authority back down to the counties to help them out, where you didn't have to go through a whole big bureaucratic way all the way down to Little Rock, back over to Windmills, back to the owners, back this. So that kind of helped out a little bit on there. I also know that they have distances, they set up their minimum distances where the windmills have to be from county roads or residents. I think one of them, I talked to a friend of mine down in Searcy County, where they do have it now where you have to be, I think it was 2,100 feet from your neighbor's line if a windmill goes up. Okay, can't really just put it and there's his fence line or his property line. It's got to be back away, I believe. And
Can you
there's
hear me now?
there's other stuff in there. You with us, John?
I am. It's
Well,
amazing.
I'll wait.
It's
I
amazing
don't know
what
what I'm
happens when you
talking
push the
about.
right button. All right, Candace, push the button. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Don't touch nothing. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is John Russo. I'm the county attorney. I have to give you my disclaimer up front. I cannot give you legal advice. The only one I can give legal advice to is the quorum court and the county judge. However, county judge had to be out of town tonight. Unfortunately, I had to be, but because of our new technology, hopefully everybody can hear me well, and I'll answer any questions you may have. Just to follow up on Justice Johnson's statement, the county can pass an ordinance. The ordinance can only be more restrictive than the state law. It cannot be less. And in reviewing the state law, it's pretty specific. It's pretty intense. The question would be whether or not the residents of our county, elected officials, if there would be something in particular in going through those regulations that they might want to make more stringent. Questions?
All that found under that Act 945 or whatever, so we can look that up online.
Yes, it started out as Senate Bill 437. It did get made into law under Act 945, and then it was subsequently codified, and it starts at 23-18-1301, and this is known as the Arkansas Wind Energy Development Act. So it has now been codified. And when I say that, I mean you can find it in the statute books.
Yeah, John.
Mr. Russo, I'm a little concerned. In the act, there's several reporting requirements, either to permitting. Note that the legislative jurisdiction.
Justice Reed, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm not picking you up because there's no microphone close. I don't know if you can grab one of those microphones like off the prosecutor's table right there and put it up on the table. There may be enough cord to reach.
Careful, John.
Yeah, the same, but-
Don't say it.
Hang on a second. Hang on, we gotta turn it on.
Oh, okay, well, that's different.
Justice Reed, that's not for karaoke.
That's what I'm paid for. Can you hear me?
I can.
In the act, I was a little disturbed, I guess is the word, that many of the reporting requirements for like, Arkansas Oil and Gas and the environmental group, didn't include the local legislative jurisdiction. And those were, during the permitting process, there was a 60-day comment period, that would be very useful to the quorum court if we are the legislative jurisdiction.
So one of the things that's not in there, although under the notice requirements, there is a whole laundry list of where it's has to go to. And one of those, it does have to go to the county clerk. So the actual list is one of the people that's listed in 2318-513, the Department of Parks, Heritage, and Tourism, the circuit clerk of each county in which the proposed energy facility will be located, any landowner or residents located within 4 miles of the proposed location of the wind energy facility, all public libraries in each county, and the Arkansas Public Service Commission shall prescribe by the rule the form and submittal requirements of the written notice required under this section. So at least the county clerk's going to be getting notice of it, and that may be something where the quorum court wants to specifically spell out, or the county judge himself can do a policy that specifically says if the clerk receives any notice, that notice will be included in the packet for all JPs in their very next meeting.
During the permitting process, how involved is the local?
Basically, in the permitting process, other than those notice requirements, unless there's a county ordinance, everything's going to fall upon some of the different state entities and the Arkansas Public Service Commission.
I'm going to do is, if you got a question, Stevie, come up here. I'm going to bring the mic to you. How's that? Then you stay where you're at. So any other questions? Here we go. Hang on.
Okay, so I talked to you about this at the meeting the other night,
Okay.
but if we as a county say, yes, we do not want this anywhere in the county.
your mouth.
About this.
Perfect.
If we as a county say, we do not want windmills at all, is the state ordinances of sufficient teeth to prevent that? Or should the quorum court go ahead and make those more restrictive ordinances?
If you say you don't want them at all, potentially the county could be open for a lawsuit because it would be the county that would have to pass that ordinance. And Arkansas Constitution is pretty stringent on private property rights. And the question would be how the ordinance is written. You just couldn't do a blanket. We're not going to have them in our county, period. But you could come up with a more restrictive measure to make sure that the property owners in the area are adequately protected.
This is a forum court meeting.
Mr. Russo, would it be reasonable to put this issue on the ballot?
Okay, here's the problem if you put it on the ballot. It would have to meet the referendum requirements in the petition under the statute. And off the top of my head, I want to say it's 100 to 150 residents. However, the wording of that referendum would have to be pretty specific, because if you just put, we don't want any windmills in the county, and it got voted in, that would be in the referendum, but then it would come before the quorum court for a final vote. And as the county attorney, I'd say, if you pass this, you're going to get sued. Now, recently in Searcy County, they didn't go along with a moratorium. And part of the reason was the risk managers, the attorneys that would defend the county in a lawsuit through the Arkansas Association of Counties, said, that type of lawsuit, you don't have the coverage for, and we wouldn't represent you. So my legal advice, knowing the Arkansas Constitution, what I would tell all the quorum court and the county judge, you can't just say you can't have it, period, because that's going to fly in the face of the Arkansas Constitution, and it would be struck down as unconstitutional. However, if you came up with a more restrictive ordinance than state law, and there's tons of different areas here where you could be more stringent, then that's where, if the county decided they wanted to have an ordinance, I would probably get input from a lot of other jurisdictions where this has been tried and challenged and they've stood up in court. And then you'd be better to craft an ordinance if you want to do it that way.
Any questions for Carolyn, even if you have some of that, just not John?
Does the highway department have any input on this projects at all?
Only from the standpoint of they'd have to meet all the transportation weights and measures. And if it was overweight, length, things along those lines, they'd have to get the permit from the Department of Transportation in order to transport.
Survey the roads or anything? These, I moved these things for years. A base weighs 205,000 pounds on the truck. You're gonna tear up a lot of bridges.
And that's where they would have to have the permits from the Department of Transportation. And one of the things I'm going to be curious to see, since they're going to have to develop the rules through the Arkansas Public Service Commission, I would hope with the input that we've had from the state legislators, that this would be part of the rulemaking process, because there's no ifs, ands, or buts. They're going to have to comply with the state laws when it comes to these. And I will tell you, there is some pretty significant penalties for violation of height and weight measures under the law. One of these citations is not like a regular traffic ticket. They could run into the tens of thousands of dollars for a violation.
Question. As of now, all of the wind turbines in Arkansas, they're on private land. People agree to it. It's a private thing.
Right now, to the best of my knowledge, yes. Typically what these wind energy companies have done in other states, they contact landowners, farmers, and a lot of you are probably familiar with these in oil producing states because they don't have the power generation for the oil wells. So because of the amount of energy that these windmills produce, that's why they've really popped up in these areas. As you heard tonight, these windmills are now expanding because I don't know how to describe it other than like the data mining, things along those lines. If you don't have a power supply sufficient, that's where these windmills and solar farms are gaining favor.
Anyone else? Okay.
Mr. Russo, could you go over the setbacks, please?
Oh. Let me flip through my notes.
I don't know what the score is, and we're here.
So first of all, I will tell you there are some people in the Ozarks that have residential windmills, and basically the residential ones are going to be exempt from this. So let me start there. So if it's in a dwelling and it either transmits or uses wind energy, if it's less than 200 feet in total height, it's not going to be subject to these regulations. Okay. The other thing they have to get is, depending upon what it's going to go in for, they'd also have to obtain approval or conditional approval from the Arkansas Oil and Gas Commission in addition to the Public Service Commission. All right. So here's some of the measurements. All right. The minimum setback for the base of any wind turbine of a wind energy facility from a non-participating landowner's property shall be equal to the greater of 3.5 times the total height of the wind turbine as measured from the ground at its base to the maximum height of the tip blade or the blade tip. And except as provided in subdivision of this section, 2,500 feet. A non-participating landowner may elect to sign a waiver to allow a wind turbine to be placed up to 1.1 times the total height of the wind turbine as measured from the ground at its base to the maximum height of the blade tip from the non-participating landowner's property. The minimum setback for the base of a wind turbine from a wind energy facility shall be 1 mile from any of the following locations existing at the time the application for the permit is filed: a public or private school, a hospital, a nursing home facility, a church, the city limits of a town or city, a state or federal park, and a public airport. Except as provided in another section, an application shall be accompanied by an environmental impact assessment conducted by a qualified third-party expert and approved by the Public Service Commission, paid by the applicant, of the potential adverse impacts within 4 miles of the perimeter of the wind energy facility or wind energy facility expansion. An environmental impact assessment required under this subdivision shall not be required if the environmental review of wind energy facility or any portion of the wind energy facility is required under the National Environmental Policy Act of 1969, promulgated at 42 USC section 4321, as it existed on January 1st, 2025. The environmental impact, it has to include a study of economic impacts to individuals, real property values, tourism and agriculture, an assessment for compliance with state and national fire, building and electrical codes, a wildlife impact assessment to including without limitation, a study of potential adverse impacts to wildlife refuges, preserves and management areas, areas that provide habitat for threatened or endangered species, primary nursery areas designated by the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, critical fisheries habitats identified under applicable state or federal law, viewshed analysis for state and federal parks and forests, historic and cultural sites, public parks and recreation areas, private conservation area, hydrogeological assessment of areas of water within a minimum of 4 miles, including bodies of water, flowing water sources, stormwater runoff, wetlands, groundwater, aquifers, and private wells. Risk assessment mitigation recommendations for shadow flicker and incidents, including wind turbine fires, structural damage or failure, ice throw, blade shear, and hazardous material spills. Except as provided in another section, shadow flicker shall not exceed 30 hours annually as verified in an assessment prepared according to professional standards. So the other thing is a non-participating landowner may elect to sign a waiver to allow ice throw, blade shear, or shadow flicker from any wind turbine or group of wind turbines on non-participating landowner's property. There also has to be risk assessment for civil air navigation, military or law enforcement routes or training exercises, emergency medical flights, radar operations, and mobile phone services. There's more that goes on, but those are basically all the setback requirements.
In my opinion, Act 945 is pretty stout. We looked at a lot of ordinances from other states, and as far as I know, it's just Arkansas and Tennessee that have an ordinance statewide. All the other states, they're by the counties. So in my opinion, they did really well on Act 945. It's pretty stout. The one thing, there's two things that I think are missing. One is the distance of a base of a turbine to a county road, because there are about a half a dozen turbines on this particular project that if they were to collapse in the direction of the road, they would cover the county road. And that's the only access we have in and out. So that is not in Act 945. And it would be, if a county wanted to add that, that would make it more stout. And then the other is if there's any added areas between the rivers, the creeks and the lakes. Yep. So thank you so much for covering all of that. What's your opinion overall of Act 945? Is it
I don't
pretty
get-
strong?
Um,
Oh, that's right, you can't.
I don't give opinions. I just give legal advice to the elected officials. Here's what I will tell you, though, based upon what I just read. If you look at the location specifically in Marion County, 4 miles as the crow flies is awful close to core property, which would be considered an educational, a recreational area. Rivers, certain recreational areas such as both the Buffalo and Crooked Creek. There's a lot of areas that would fall under a lot of these setback requirements. So the other thing to keep in mind is the county already, and I don't remember, Justice Reed, you may remember this, but I'm pretty sure, didn't we pass an ordinance about the data mining and some of those data centers?
Yeah, they did.
Okay, so that's one of the things that's going to come into play as well, because if someone goes, all right, I want a windmill because I'm going to put in a data center, we've already got an ordinance on those data centers that's pretty tight. See what I'm saying? And if their intent is to provide the energy for the data centers, the first thing that's going to have to come up, they're going to have to pass muster on the data center. Then they're going to have to pass everything that goes through this act. And I think the legislature pretty much got it right when they did this. But as you can see, if there's some particular thing pertaining to an individual county, they allowed it to remain open for the county to take the specific things in their county that are of value and importance to them to be able to incorporate that into a more stringent ordinance.
Anybody else?
So doing the math, if it's a minimum of a 2,500-foot step back, then you basically got to have at least 80 acres before you can put a windmill on your property if one of your adjacent landowners does not participate. Is basically how the setback would work.
The best way I could tell you is, I'm a lawyer, not a mathematician. I'm going to assume your math is right.
I think he did the math before he came here.
Okay. I'll give you an example. I have a neighbor, my property, the state line runs right through my property. So I've got acreage in Marion County, Arkansas, and in Ozark County, Missouri. And I could not put, on my total 44 acres, I could not put a wind turbine on my property. However, my neighbors own several sections of property. And one of their property lines, because they own sections, one property line's 1 mile long. They could very easily be able to put a windmill or two on their property, and they wouldn't run afoul of anybody or anything. So a lot of it's going to depend upon the exact site. And then, as you heard under state law with the mileage requirements, where's the core property? Where's some of the wildlife management property? Where's the lakes? Where's the rivers? They're going to have their hands full on an environmental impact study.
Anyone else?
Do we have any windmill companies in an active permitting process for Marion County?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, he is. There's none to my knowledge. He's asking if there's anything of your knowledge, that there's any kind of movement for windmill construction here in this county at all.
Not to the best of my knowledge, no. And last time I talked to county judge last week, he wasn't aware of any.
That was my understanding about that as well, because that was one of the first questions I asked when Carolyn got a hold of you. That constituents got a hold of me, and another person who first brought attention was Jared Out. He brought it to my attention, and and then Carolyn called me. It's kind of strange how that worked. So that was my first thing, was, are we talking windmills are coming to Marion County? Well, I couldn't find anything, and Carolyn said no, I think that was correct. But it did seem to be that we needed to at least get this information out there so that everybody's more informed about what they are. You may have no problem with them, you may not like them. That's not the point of this meeting, was so we could get all the information out there so everybody's, I guess you could say, on the same sheet of music.
The one thing County Judge and I talked about last week, and we talked about it at length, was I think we're gonna have a whole different ball game if we strike oil on the north end of the county. But barring striking oil on the north end of the county, the major thing we talked about was how this would tie in with data mining centers compared to the ordinance we've already passed. And combining those together is going to be even more stringent than just Act 945.
Anyone else? Well, I think that pretty well does it, I guess. If nobody has any more questions or comments. Again, Mr. Russo, thank you very much. It was very informative, very legalese, but it was very informative. And Carolyn, thank you so much, giving the insight about what went on in Carroll County so that she could give you exactly what was going on in those areas where they did put up the windmills. And again, I thank all of you for coming out. I appreciate it. It shows a very good interest in this county, and that's a big plus.
If
Go ahead,
I may, Tommy, I will tell everyone that since all this had begun, Judge and I, the county judge and I, have had numerous discussions on this. He's been tracking and following us, and I know he's talked to a number of other people. He's very concerned. He wanted to be there tonight. When he couldn't be, he asked me to attend, and I said I had a prior commitment. However, his first thought was, how are we going to use 945 in conjunction with our existing ordinances to basically protect the citizens? Because he's looking at this as a whole. How would this affect our tourism? How would this affect Marion County? He's a firm believer in personal property rights, but he also wants to make sure that any type of installation of data mining or windmills does not also interfere with the private property rights of other individuals. So I anticipate he and I are going to have more discussions on this as time goes on. So I would highly encourage everyone, if you have questions, make an appointment, see county judge, bring your concerns to him, and I guarantee you he and I will be having more discussions.
Okay, yeah, if you want to watch this again, this is being recorded, okay? So if you want to watch again, say, hey, there I am, or, okay. Go online, I think it's marioncounty.ar.
Channel,
What-
Marion County.
I think they're going to pull it up the way we look at it. But you can go online and check it's on both.
AR government.
Okay, AR government or AR.gov?
Our
YouTube
channel.
Marion County, AR government. I know. Welcome to modern world technology, 21st century. Here we are. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I go back. I'll be 72 years old in June. I remember all we had was 2 black and white channels, no telephone, and no insulation in the house. And what's that? No remote. No, I was the remote. I was the oldest. Okay, go up. Yeah, well, let's go to channel 10 and watch Gunsmoke or whatever like that. Folks, I tell you what, thank you so much for coming out. Mr. Russo, again, thank you very much for the insight on that. Carolyn, for coming over here, and appreciate everybody coming out. And you can tell them that you have been informed. Just okay. And I'm sure that if other questions come up or some issues, we'll have another town hall. We're going to keep this out there so that everyone can have it, be on front of this and be really informed about what's going on. Again, thank you so much for coming out, and you have a good evening.